Patience is the sixth parami. It gets high praise from the Buddha. One of the most famous uses of it is in something called the Ovada Patimokkha Gata, which is basically an explanation to newly converted monks about the Vinaya, or rules of discipline in brief. He suggests that they abandon their ideas, former ideas, that harsh bodily asceticism was productive of good qualities, and that they now take up khanti, or patience, as the best use of their mental energies. Khanti paramang uttamang in Pali. Khanti is patience, paramang, perfection, uttamang, supreme. Khanti is the supreme perfection. Now, the primary use of this patience is to overcome anger. So basically it's non-reactivity to unwelcome, painful, problematic situations. And anger is one of the three primary roots, unwholesome roots. So we have greed, hatred, and delusion. Anger being a form of aversion or hatred. So it comes to your rescue if you develop this, because if you don't, anger, he says, is liable to lead to not only discomfort in this present life, in this present moment, but also negative actions, negative emotions, which are going to have fruition in following lives. So patience prevents the arising of anger, which would, of course, produce a very unwholesome and unpleasant emotion in this life and in the lives to follow. So it has a karmic consequence. And it's always usually under the situation of negative events. Equanimity is useful in both pleasant events and negative events, but patience is exclusively for negative events and the production of anger. The Buddha says it has a great effect on your reputation. If you're considered a patient person who does not react in anger or impatience to delays, frustrations, painful situations, negative, difficult encounters with people and with situations, then one's reputation is established. So in this very life, one is praised as a patient person who endures difficulties without anger, without resentment, without frustration. He says also that when you indulge in anger, all of the negative aspects come up, and it changes the expressions on your face, it makes you sleep badly, one thing leads to another. So anger is more or less first on the list of things to go. It is a great stain on the personality, and patience is one way to defeat it. We think the opposite of anger is loving kindness, which indeed it is, and it is also a beautiful replacement for anger, but patience is also a replacement for anger. It's basically non-reactivity. It doesn't necessarily have a positive element to it, but it has no element of negativity to it. So the Buddha talks about it as closing off the doorway to the plane of misery. A patient person does not enter the doorway to the lower realms, but it does form a staircase to the higher realms. So this patience also tends to ascend, and the more you practice it, the more you will have this lightness of being. An impatient person cuts off all of the possibilities of the other paramis. You cannot attain enlightenment and be an impatient person. You can be perhaps a little impatient of attaining bliss and so forth, but kind of motivated for that. But primarily the counteractivity of patience is towards these negative, aversive emotions. Now, people don't understand patience. Patience really is not endurance. It's not really patient endurance. Endurance is required when you're experiencing aversion. To bear your own anger is hard. To be patient and to get free of your own anger is not hard. There's nothing to endure and there's nothing to bear. So patience is the absence of this internal, negative, painful emotion. And this is not well understood by people. So impatience, every time you're impatient, it's kind of like running in place, waiting for a red light to change, and you're late for an appointment. And you feel that you have to be there, and yet you can't be there. So there's an interesting element with patience is the acknowledgement, and it requires some wisdom, the acknowledgement that things are out of control, and you can't always be someplace on time, because that would mean that the world would be under your control, which it's not. So patience has an element of wisdom to it. You can step out the door expecting that there will be impediments to your desires and your goals in life. Physical impediments and people impediments. Most likely you will encounter many frustrations with other people. They also will not conform to your desires. They can be hostile and angry at you, and as patience comes to your rescue in the case of dealing with people who are angry with you. And there are ways to reflect to allow this. One way is, here's an opportunity to practice patience. If that has not occurred to you before, then it's a beautiful idea that when people who are angry or problematic or delaying your gratification, there's a gift to you, an opportunity to explore patience and find out that you don't need to suffer. There are ways of being with these situations which free you, and in that way, difficult people are a gift to you. You can also reflect karmically, and these are techniques for developing patience. You can say, well, why this thing is happening to me as a result of my own negative actions in the past, and they're arising. And so as they arise, they also lose their energy. In other words, the vipaka, the karmic results of past negative actions, play themselves out. And you are freeing yourself from the debt of your own negative actions in the past. So when negative things happen to you, whether you stub your toe or lose your job or get stuck in traffic, these are all negative events which have some sort of causal structure from the past. And you're discharging the debt when these things happen. And so you can allow yourself to be patient in them, thinking, I'm benefiting, actually, I'm discharging past negative actions. Even when somebody else gets angry at you, there's got to be a karmic interplay entwined into the incalculable past, some sort of interaction between the two of you. So these are techniques which they bring up in the commentaries for cultivating patience and understanding it. It's such a beautiful deliverance from so much grief in life. If patience is the highest perfection, then impatience must be the greatest suffering. And if we can get over this impatience with everything, then we will feel a transformation in our emotional life, which is sublime and beautiful, and opens the doors to other beautiful, positive emotions as well.